this is a process that takes time and consistency. So first day, just put my training shoes on, take a few steps. Next day, just your training. You put in the time and effort. When you put it all together, it really brings results when you really see that finish line.
I know people who've been very compassionate to me. I will repay that to them for the rest of my life. That brings a kind of loyalty from people that there's not all the money in the world couldn't buy it.
The old ways of command and control, that won't work when we're motivating our teams. On the other hand, when we show that sense of compassion, that will really make room for everyone to really do their best work.
Hi, and welcome to the Bouncing Back podcast. I'm your host, Melissa McCurley, and after my own battle with autoimmune disease, I created this podcast to share strategies, tools, and inspiring stories for professionals navigating life and business with chronic illness. Please be sure to join us on our Facebook community, Bouncing Back Podcast, where we continue this conversation. I'm so excited to introduce to you today our special guest, Jessper Maquindang. He's the founder of Family Lead Management Consulting, which helps leaders build high-performing teams with matching strong cultures. He has a master's in leadership from USC, and he was bestowed the honor of 40 under 40. He's also lived with his own health journey, which he's going to share with us today. So, Jessper, welcome to the podcast.
Melissa, thank you for having me. I'm excited by your journey as well, so very excited to join you today.
Thanks. Thank you. You as well. Let's start right in with your health journey, what that looked like, how it showed up in your life, and then how it has informed everything you do, it sounds like, going forward.
Absolutely. So for me, I would say it was about 8th grade for me, and I was starting to have these breathing issues. And then I remember being sent to the hospital and then hearing the diagnosis from the doctor saying, Mr. and Mrs. Maquindang, your son has asthma. I did not know what to expect about it back then because I had no idea what that diagnosis was exactly. I just knew I had some strange breathing problems. But growing up, I realized when people start to see those limitations, people start to lower their expectations of you. And over time, I realized that's not something I really wanted for myself. There's that metaphor, or the story of that kid that we always hear about who's stuck indoors and they look outside the window, they see all the kids having fun, they're running around, playing soccer, and they're just having the time of their life, and that kid is just inside in the dark, not excited. That's not the kind of lifestyle I wanted for myself. And then as I grew up, I was inspired by people with major goals, and especially that of marathon runners. And I told myself, I'm still trying to figure out where that inspiration came from, but I told myself, one day I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run 26.2 miles. And over time, as I got older, I started doing some of the training. So I didn't go all in one night. This is a process that takes time and consistency. So first day, just put my training shoes on, take a few steps. Next day, training shoes on, take a few more steps. Next day, put my training shoes on, even take a few more steps above that. And then I signed up for my first 5K. That was exciting. And then after completing that, signed up for my first 10K. And then after completing that, signed up for my first half marathon. And then I realized, okay, next is that full marathon. Wow, a little bit nervous, a little bit excited, but continued to do my training. And then my first marathon was San Diego Rock and Roll. And for these races, we have to get up really early to start. So I remember it was before 7 a.m. San Diego, I'm looking out in the distance at the starting line thinking to myself, Jessper, what in the world did you just sign up for? This is crazy. I was a little bit nervous, but as soon as we went through that start line, ran through the course, and then as the mileage started to pick up, of course, that pressure on my legs, the body, the lungs, started to feel that. And then over time, that just started to build up more. And I thought to myself, okay, Jessper, trust your training. You put in the time and effort to get this far. Too late to turn back. especially when I'm at mile 20 or mile 21. And then, of course, that pressure continued to build up. And again, the sense of nervousness, but that why, that purpose, remembering that I really wanted to accomplish something meaningful and show that I can overcome the limitations I grew up with. Of course, that pressure continued to build up, but as soon as I saw the 25-mile mark and 26 and realized I was getting so close, I really pushed myself. And then once I crossed that finish line, that sense of joy, fulfillment really brought up this great sense of accomplishment. Just reminding myself that the time, energy, that consistency, systems I put in place, when you put it all together, it really brings results when you really see that finish line.
Now, you mentioned that you did it in increments. What was the timeline? How long did it take you from when, I'm going to circle back to this with struggles that my chronic illness community, how long did it take you from when you decided to put those running shoes on till you were finally able to run a full marathon?
Absolutely. So for me, I made it a goal for about a year. And then I stayed with a 5K and 10K for a while just to make sure I was getting used to it, because I didn't want to put that full pressure of 26.2 miles overnight. Really built in that consistency over time, did it gradually, so it made sense instead of going from 1 to 26.2 in one go. It was really a process, but making sure that process was in place and just listening to my body and understanding when it was time to move up and taking it step by step. That's where I found the progress was becoming meaningful. So it really was a step-by-step journey.
Gotcha. I know that's one of the themes. It was a theme for me and also for many of my listeners is this is for business owners or professionals. So we tend to be high achieving people. And then you get struck by a chronic, for lack of a better term, or it enters your life or it gets to a level. And I know for me and for many people I've interviewed, it literally just pulled the rug out from under it. It was that fast. And when you have several years of being sick and being so different from who you were before, you mentioned that metaphor of being a child with the walls closed in, watching the rest of the world from outside, pining for that, and then you accept it. And then there's the question of, am I lowering my bar for myself or am I taking care of myself? And I think there's a phase for taking care of yourself. You have to calibrate. But then when you're a high achieving kind of person, a goal person, you want to be able to move out of that as quickly as you can. Does that make sense? That consistency. And I love your message of consistency, because I know my process with that was the minute I felt better, I overdid. And then I fell back again. I didn't have the level of consistency so I could build small successes. And that was challenging. What do you have anything to add to that with you obviously did a much better job of the consistency.
And Melissa, I really like how you brought up the idea of calibrating, because we do need some time to really take a step back, reset, to make sure we're not putting way too much pressure on ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, because that can lead to burnout. But at the same time, when we get that time to reflect, we can see where we are and we can decide on what steps we can take to really find meaningful progress.
Did you ever have a time during your training phase where your asthma kicked up and you had to ask yourself, am I going to be able to do this? Or you just have to shift your timeline?
Oh, absolutely. Especially with training, there are days when I'm out there and especially in the beginning, it feels good. And then I realize in the middle of it, for some reason, the pressure just built up. What I did is told myself to slow down. I'm not racing against anyone at the moment. It's really just making sure I get another PR for myself, but really essentially not putting too much pressure on myself, taking that step back, especially if I'm on the course, not to go too fast, slow down, but when I'm ready to pick up again, that's when I can really get back and hit the ground running.
So pacing, I hear pacing.
Pacing, that's right.
Is it? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you obviously sound like somebody who's very goal-oriented. You've had a lot of achievements. What mindsets or self-talk did you have when you had to maybe adjust your pace? And did that fight with your inner voice, that part of you that made you somebody who wanted to reach a goal like that to begin with?
Absolutely. So especially when I'm at a race with a full marathon, when I'm at mile 23 and 24, that pressure really builds up. But I remind myself about the why, the purpose, the reason I'm doing this. I'm reminding myself that it's to show that I can overcome the limitations that have been placed upon myself and really leaning into that. So by the time I feel or I hear that inner voice saying, oh, this is too much for you, I remind myself that when I'm outside my comfort zone, this is giving me the opportunity to grow and really push forward to what I'm trying to achieve.
That makes perfect sense. Do you ever, so I've never run a marathon, but I was on like relay teams before. And so I've been the energy of, there's a big marathon here in Dallas called the White Rock Marathon. I think it's qualifier for maybe the New York. A lot of people run it. But I know also being a type A person, I found myself being competitive, serving everybody and wanting to sometimes outpace, run faster. Do you find yourself struggling at all with the energy of wanting to compete or other people and what they're doing, and while maintaining the pace you need to maintain for yourself with the things that you have on your plate to be able to do that?
Absolutely. There's always the temptation because when you look at the race results, you see how well other people are doing, and that just inspires you to want to do better. But at the same time,
right,
we want to balance that need to really take care of ourselves as well. So just trying to find a middle ground that's fair for us as we achieve those types of goals, especially running a marathon where it's very physical, very mental. We see the celebrations that go on with the people who are really fast. We are tempted to reach what they reach, but at the same time, it's still important to take care of ourselves as well. So finding that balance in middle ground.
Because at the end of the day, it really is just competing with ourselves. But
that's right.
That energy, that energy is there, so it's available to key in.
That's right.
That makes perfect sense. I know one of your strengths is helping leaders build strong cultures. And I'm assuming with that you have lots of different personalities. You have people maybe showing up with different needs and different seasons of their life. How do you approach that in your mentorship?
Absolutely. So when it comes to working with a team, culture is foundational. And we want to ensure that there is alignment with the values, alignment with goals and milestones. And when we look at the team, we want to make sure that everyone is striving for what the major goal is instead of having everyone on the same page. Because if everyone is misaligned, that could delay, that could bring about the incorrect results. But when a leader is much more intentional about the vision, the values, the mission, everything that they're really aiming for, and really making it clear and showing team members how to get there, that really gives a better picture of how everyone can work well together. Because when we look at teams, as you mentioned, Melissa, people have different personalities, people have different expectations, people have different ideas of the way work should be done. And when you put that all together, yes, it can create a lot of complexity and chaos. But when the expectations are set by the leader and the leader just taking those moments to inspire and really align everyone with the common mission, that's where we'll see more of the results start to kick in, because the goal of a leader is really to get everyone excited and inspired to get on the same page.
That makes sense. Do you see a place, I know COVID shifted all of our expectations of working from home and working remotely and so forth. Do you see more room for flexibility in teams where maybe it's focused on outcome and not process? And how do you show up, and what, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes, excellent question, especially when it comes to post-pandemic, where we're seeing different types of works where, yes, remote and hybrid, they've been around for years, but it's been more intensified in recent years. And when it comes to outcomes versus process, there are many managers and leaders who still expect a certain time frame for things to be done. But at the same time, there's still that opportunity to focus on the results more than the time we're spending on something. Because when we look at the goals and people are showing that they're getting the work done very well, leaders and managers should appreciate that work, regardless whether it's hybrid, in-person, remote. If they're really putting in the work and it shows, leaders and managers have the opportunity to really appreciate that.
Have you seen more flexibility with leaders around that recently, since COVID?
I would say It can go both ways. Essentially, yes, because leaders and managers are becoming more used to remote and hybrid work. But at the same time, I know it's still tempting for managers to really focus on the way things have been done in the past because it had brought about certain results. But at the same time, as we move forward into the future, it is really important to really embrace and understand the impact and opportunities behind the flexibility.
Yeah. And I can see how it could be very different from industry to industry. That flexibility might lend itself more. Do you have an example you could share, like something kind of obviously not names, but specifics of a situation of how you were able to go in and tweak a culture for a team and help them either overcome something negative that they were dealing with or help them jump towards a goal?
Absolutely. So there was a team I was working with. There was one team member that he had certain expectations that just didn't match with what the rest of the team members were doing. He wanted things to be done a certain way, and it just did not align with everyone else. It was a little bit pushy, a little bit forceful, but when we had a deeper discussion, we all realized we were still focused toward the same goals, and using that as a starting point to really look at the big picture and realize that we're actually aiming toward the same thing. It may be done differently, but when we realize we're still working through the same thing, there's opportunities to see where we can realign our efforts. So after those conversations, I really became more intentional about embracing more of those discussions where they could see a middle ground, because although the process was different from both sides, the end goal was similar. And then just finding those ways. They reviewed the types of tasks that needed to be done, reviewed the processes and systems and how to complete those tasks, and then they worked together better because they understood that although there were differences, especially personality differences, in the end, everyone was striving toward the same goal.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you had to make like little micro agreements about the goal and then worked backwards.
That's right. So looking at the big why and the purpose.
Because sometimes people can get stuck and they don't realize they're stuck. I know this has happened to me where they get stuck in what they're doing and they get a little myopic. So if you can give them that broader view, they can let go of some of the resistance.
That's right.
Has there ever been a time, or what does it look like when it is this time, where maybe the best advice to a leader is to let somebody go, that somebody's just not a right fit for a team, and maybe even as a kindness to that person, that it's not the best fit for anybody? How do you know that difference?
Absolutely. That can be a challenging conversation, especially when a leader has built such a good relationship with someone with a team member. And it's very important to look at how work is being done. If a team is behind, that is a moment to reflect on it. I would encourage the leader to have discussions around performance improvement, because letting go does not have to be the end-all be-all solution. There are opportunities to work with team members to see where they can grow, where they can develop, ways they can move forward, and have those types of conversations. And if it's to a point where it's just becoming unproductive, that's where a type of conversation can take place, where they can be more honest about how things are going, and then just taking a deeper dive into what's missing. But overall, I would still encourage leaders to find ways to help the team member learn, grow, and develop. But when it comes to termination, if necessary, it's still important to be open and transparent about that type of conversation.
That process, yeah, that makes sense. Again, my audience are people living with chronic illness, and a lot of times, for many people with that, there's a phase where they either have to quit working or drop back to part-time. And then, or when they re-enter the workplace, it's more of in a part-time capacity. And then also having access to some or all remote work is helpful. So for people who have found themselves in that situation, not by choice, right? But they really need to advocate for that for themselves. Do you have any suggestions about resources to help them do that, or how they might think about approaching that conversation? Because I know a lot of times there can be shame and identity around having to basically say, I can't show up the way I want to, but this is what I can do.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because regardless of who we are, we still have talents that we can still embrace and show to the world. And when it comes to having conversations with the leadership team, reminding them that we have those talents that can support them, and really to embrace the flexibility, because we can bring the skills, the experience, the background, the task, the different responsibilities that different managers are looking for. It's really leaning into reminding them that the talents are available. We can provide them, in essence, giving them the opportunity to just adapt, but at the same time, we can still share the talents that we can bring into the workplace.
That makes sense. That's great. I know a lot of people can get into all or nothing thinking. I can't be back full time in the office 24/7. I can't do it. But I hear you saying there's a lot of middle ground.
There's middle ground. And especially, there are so many talented people out there who do find some challenges, whether that's physical, emotional, or mental, but still very talented. And when they lean into that talent, that's the opportunity to really remind leaders and managers that help is available, provide that flexibility.
Yeah, and experience too. There's an efficiency and a wisdom that comes with experience that just takes time to get. Think about not just illness, but seasons of life. I love it and what I'm trying to do this podcast is foster more open conversations. We have seasons of life where maybe we're at the end of a life of an aging parent. I think of families with young children being able to be open about our needs and making room for everybody, even if that person isn't able to show up at 100% like they usually do at this particular season. There's still room for them, and it's a matter of time before they will be able to do that. We all are going to go through things, whatever that is.
That's right. And Melissa, I like how you brought up the idea of making room for everyone, especially for a leader. I see that as a valuable responsibility for leaders and managers to make room for everyone.
Yeah, because they never know if they're the one who's going to get a chronic illness. They might be the one and then you need that support. It's very humbling. I'll tell you, one of my biggest blessings that's come out of this experience is to really have more compassion. I was a kind person before, but I didn't sit with that kind of compassion where you really try to understand somebody's situation. And yeah, it's really different when you have a lived experience with it.
And Melissa, I really like how you brought up the concept of compassion, especially when it comes to leading teams, because the old ways of command and control, that won't work when we're motivating our teams. On the other hand, when we show that sense of compassion, that will really make room for everyone to really do their best work. So I like how you brought that up.
Thanks. And I know people who've been very compassionate to me. I will repay that to them for the rest of my life. That brings a kind of loyalty from people that there's not all the money in the world couldn't buy it. Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you, where can people find you and learn more about, a lot of my audience are real estate agents who run teams, who are part of teams, and other professions as well. Where can people come learn more about your management leadership business?
Absolutely. So there are two ways. Feel free to visit my website at familyconsulting.com. And the second way is I'm very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. I enjoy having conversations about leadership, development, team building, company culture, personal growth, professional development. Absolutely enjoy those conversations. So feel free to reach out.
Do you ever do any speaking or like workshop training, or do you mostly just work one-on-one with teams?
Oh, all the above.
Oh, great.
Speaking, training, working with teams, you name it.
Okay, all the above. I love that. And then also I'll link all of this information in the show notes below. I just wanted to let people know the website now. Do you have any parting words for people? Any final thoughts?
Absolutely. Over the years, there's been a quote from John Maxwell that's just really inspired me. And he said, when you help other people grow and develop, it brings a great sense of joy, satisfaction, and energy. So I encourage all of you out there to help other people grow and develop, and you will see great returns coming back to you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And from a coach and mentor said. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and thank you and coming and sharing your expertise and your experience with our audience. Please rate, review, and share this show. It helps us so much. And we'll be back in 2 more weeks with more stories of success. So until then, keep bouncing back. Bye. If these stories of strength and comeback hit home, you'll want to hear what's next. Click the video on screen to keep learning from our incredible guests on how to bounce back and thrive.